As NBA fans, we were lucky to witness one of the most dominant performances we have seen in an NBA season by two all-time historic seasons and two big men no less, in an era where traditional bigs were seen as a thing of the past. I mean, really, when you think about the insane seasons both Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic had, and it really being their third season in a row for both of them putting up shattering numbers that even some of the all-time greats could not amass, it puts it into perspective just how much talent is in the game of basketball right now and how it's excelled over time. But while most of us would just like to sit back and witness in awe of how good these two basketball players are on the court, others have a different agenda, especially when it comes to selecting the league MVP winner, or at least they believe there is more to it than just one's performance in a given season. More specifically, this narrative that race played a factor into Joel Embiid getting voted as the league's MVP after Jokic won it in back-to-back seasons when Embiid also had a legitimate case of winning it in both of those seasons. Well, in this video, we'll be explaining why race was not a factor at all in this decision and discuss all the actual factors that led to Joel Embiid winning his first MVP award. If you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, let's start with how this whole erroneous narrative came about that race played a factor in deciding the league's MVP, when Kendrick Perkins of ESPN implied that the reason Nikola Jokic won back-to-back MVPs and why Joel Embiid would be unlikely to receive the award because the panel who votes on the award, most of them are racially biased. When he was called out in this comment by JJ Redick, Perk doubled down on his comment, simply stating, "It's the facts," over and over and over again.
Hold on. I did not call. I stated the facts. And you're not about to sit up.
We all know what you implied the other day. We all know what you implied just now.
Hold on. I stated
one at a time.
It's the facts.
One at a time.
It's the facts. It's the facts.
And while I think most would agree that no one in the media world nor NBA fans really take anything Kendrick Perkins says seriously, and a lot of times just says things for shock value because of his comments, there are some who believe that Jokic would have been on his way to winning the award for the third straight time, until these comments forced the panel to lean more towards Embiid so as not to come out as being racially motivated in their decision. Now, first, to put this into context, how absurd a claim like this is, you have to understand that 100 people vote on the league MVP. It's not like this is a panel of 5 or 10 people. There are a lot of folks from multiple avenues in the media who have a vote on this award. That's a lot of people to be collectively racially biased or racist in some fashion in their selection. Like, even if a handful do in fact have some racial biases, which I find highly unlikely, but even if there were a few, there are still 100 total people who would hopefully remain unbiased to make the results objective enough to determine a clear winner. On top of that, does Kendrick Perkins not realize the last time a white player won the award before Jokic was Dirk Nowitzki all the way back in 2007? Some racist voters they have making these decisions, I tell you. But look, the racial narrative and how bogus that is to begin with aside, the reason Embiid won this award was because he was the most dominant player in the NBA this season. Jokic had a great season as well, and he should have absolutely been considered as a top candidate, which he was, finishing second in voting with Giannis behind him in third. But Joel Embiid was on another level. The man has been incredible for years now, ever since finally getting fully healthy after having a slow start to his career, missing the first couple of seasons in the league and then being on a game and minutes restrictions after that. But as soon as he went into the second season, his second season, the man took off and never looked back, just continuing to get better and better with every passing season. And while I'm gonna need to do a Joel Embiid tribute video of some kind because of the story behind him and his journey in getting to the NBA and overcoming injuries to start his career, that needs to be discussed. But for Embiid, this season, he really did take his game to a new level, which I never thought would be possible. He finished with the scoring title for the second season in a row, averaging 33.1 points per game on 55, 33, 85 shooting splits, a true shooting percentage of an insane 65.5%, which was top 15 in the league. Crazy to have that kind of efficiency on that kind of volume of shooting at over 20 attempts per game, and with that kind of scoring output. Now, don't get me wrong, Jokic led the entire league in true shooting percentage at 70%, which is just bonkers, but he wasn't putting up close to the number of attempts that Embiid was, doing that in just a tad under 15 shots per game. But for Embiid, what sets him apart from Jokic this season is just how impactful he is when he's on the court versus when he's off. The Sixers are significantly a better team when Embiid is playing compared to when he's out of the lineup, while Jokic, his team doesn't have the same kind of struggles when he's not playing. Don't get me wrong, both teams are significantly better when both their stars are on the court, but for the Sixers, while yes, they have James Harden, they have Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, the overall construction of the Nuggets roster is much more fluid and well-rounded to succeed even when Jokic isn't playing. The same cannot be said for the Sixers, who rely heavily on both ends of the floor for Joel Embiid. You want to talk about defense? I think we can all agree that Embiid is hands down a better defender than Jokic, with elite level rim protection and footwork to stay on his man in the paint. Embiid was actually one of the top defenders in the NBA this season with a top 10 defensive rating and averaging 1.7 blocks per game and 1 steal, as well as top 10 in the league in deflections per game. Led the league in scoring while also being a top level defender and one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. Embiid was getting it done everywhere on the court this season. And while the team performance is an overall metric used to determine MVP's candidacy, and even though the Nuggets finished first in the West while the Sixers finished third, the Sixers still actually finished with a better overall record than the Nuggets did, having won 54 games compared to their 53. James Harden was also out for a good portion of the season, having only played in 58 games, while the Nuggets and their top stars were for the most part healthy, in Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., as well as Aaron Gordon. Now, of course, the biggest argument against Embiid that favors Jokic is that by most advanced metrics, Jokic has the advantage, especially when it comes to win shares, overall net rating, and box plus minus. And of course, Jokic is an offensive mastermind with his insane IQ, court vision, combined with his scoring ability and rebounding. Jokic nearly finished the season averaging a triple-double, and would have been the first to do so since Russell Westbrook back on the Oklahoma City Thunder, averaging an insane 24.5 points per game, 11.8 rebounds, and 9.8 assists. For a center is absolutely mind-boggling. By all indicators, Jokic had the best season of his career thus far, and yet he didn't win the MVP compared to the last 2 seasons. And while he certainly had a strong case for being the league's MVP for the 3rd year in a row, Joel Embiid had a more well-rounded season with his strong output and value on both ends of the floor, combined with the overall team success and how imperative he was to that success when he was on the court versus when he was off. The other factor, and you can call this fair or not, voter fatigue is a real thing. Voting a player in to win their 3rd straight MVP is such a rarity that you have to go all the way back to between 1984 and 1986 when Larry Bird won the award 3 straight times. Not even during Michael Jordan's heyday of the 90s did he win 3 straight MVPs despite clearly being the best player in the league. Nor did LeBron James ever win the award 3 straight times in his 20-year career and still going, even though he was clearly the best player in the NBA for over a decade. It just doesn't happen. The league wants to see something new, someone new. But even though voter fatigue, I'm sure, was a factor, and while there are plenty of arguments that can be made in favor of Jokic winning the award, you can't discount the absolute dominant season for which Joel Embiid just had, and very much so being deserving of the award. So all the nonsense that this was some sort of pity award because the voters were accused of being racist, or that there was some sort of bias or motivation to give Embiid the award beyond just the game of basketball and a player's performance, couldn't be further from the truth. The narrative doesn't check out when you realize the insane season that Joel Embiid had, which was an even better insane season coming from Nikola Jokic. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.